awesome episode of Just Be You podcast. This is where we're going down through self-discovery and we're bracing our authentic selves. Today, we are going to be talking about love and marriage. And I can't wait for you guys to hear from my guest today. His name is Elroy, and he's been married for almost just about as long as I have. So I really want to bring some good insight and for you guys to hear the male insight and the male perspective to love and marriage, because we all know what women think about love and marriage. So it's time to hear more from the men. But before we get into all of that, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at Motivation with D, and follow the show on Facebook at facebook.com at Just Be You Podcast. So let's just get right into it. Hey, Elroy, how are you feeling on this hot summer day?
I am good. I'm good. I was just saying, like, it feels like the entire state of Illinois is in an oven or something. So I'm fine, but we are most definitely going to be inside a lot this weekend.
I don't blame you. I mean, like I said, summer is summering, but I mean, I guess take your pick. Would you rather a wet summer or a hot summer? So,
and then when winter hits, we're going to wish that it was back again. So it's just kind of like, you can never win, we always want something.
Exactly. It's like, just enjoy what we got, stay present, and all will be well. Because summer only is 2 months out of the year. So
exactly.
It's all good.
Exactly.
So please can you just, tell the guests where you're from and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Elroy. I'm a 32-year-old based out in the St. Louis metro area. Technically, it's this podunk suburb that nobody's ever heard of. So I just say St. Louis. People are like, oh yeah, St. Louis. Been married to my wife for 7 years now. We've been together for 10. And then we have one daughter. Her name is Glory, and we have another child on the way. Actually, be here around January. It's going to be a son. Don't know the name there yet. We're still troubleshooting names.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, and a little bit about me. I mean, my day job is in sales, but my solopreneurship is in a career in life design for Gen Z. And so it's how can we align your creativity, your conviction, and your consistency so that we can focus in on a true calling for you, is really what we seek to get at. And so, motivational speaking out of high school, and then I'll work with a couple of them long term, and that's how we stay fulfilled and fed, So
nice. I love it. I mean, hey, keep pouring into the younger generation because they need it. There's no other way to say it, but
well, I needed it back then, so I know they need it now.
Yes, and it's kind of like a fun energy exchange. We're always learning from each other, so it's cool. Keep working, because I know I work with kids too. Not sometimes, all the time, through my church. So they always kind of keep me young and kind of keep me hip to the lingo of what's out there. So I enjoy it. They enjoy me. So it all works,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you mentioned that you've been married now for 7 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, did you always see yourself as, a guy that wanted to get married? Was that always like in your agenda, or is that something that kind of developed as life progressed?
Yeah, I think honestly, and I didn't realize, I guess, how, and this is not me ruffling feathers, because this was a curse for me growing up. But okay, context for me is my mom was a single mom, for the first 10 years of my life before she met my stepdad. And I just saw a lot of pain that she had to go through as it related to that. And so I just kind of like vowed from seeing her go through that I wasn't going to treat my wife that way. So I always knew that I wanted to be a husband and have a family. I jokingly say, but it's the truth, like I wanted the Boy Meets World thing, where it's like you meet the person and then you just like respectfully grow together like your whole life. Didn't happen that way at all. God has other plans, and that's okay. Yes. We're here now.
Yes. So speaking of growth, did you feel like you guys always grew together, or how did you deal with those moments where maybe, your wife was outpacing you or you were outpacing your wife?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. Because by virtue of you being together for a long term, people change regardless. And so
Mhm.
people are always coming in with a certain context, with a certain skill set, strengths and weaknesses. Just like your last episode, the lady was talking about strengths finders, everybody's good somewhere and, lacking in somewhere else.
Right.
And so I think, it really has less to do with like how to, I mean, the way that we would grow together is by collaborating on and agreeing on and executing on a vision for the family,
Okay.
beyond this marriage thing and having kids and enjoying each other's company, right?
Mhm.
um, what is this marriage thing really about, and how do we get there together, by leveraging each other's strengths and picking each other up where we're weak, so that we can get there together, is how I would answer that question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you have to say to, because for some men that don't quite have the vision as of yet, like how do you, I mean, did you surround yourself with other married men, or how did you kind of like navigate to say, okay, this is the vision, this is where I see ourselves? Or if you didn't always have it, how did you kind of
That's a great
adapt to that?
question. Yeah, this was one of those. This is an example of one of those things. It's like you just don't know what you don't know. So when my wife and I met each other, we knew pretty quickly that we were going to be committed to each other in the long haul. And so I guess what I would say there is that when you first get married, I don't know what God does, but it's like the context of your relationship shifts. And I feel like it's because both people in the party now know, like, this is forever. Like, this is how it's
Yeah.
gonna be. And I feel like people, any person, like when you almost kind of like backed in a corner almost, because it's like, now it's like, okay, there's a lot of trust on the table here. And so I by the grace of God, I'll say, early on, I kind of picked up on the fact that I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I had, and we both went through marriage counseling at our church, but I don't think there's any bit of marriage counseling that could prepare you for marriage, quite honestly, though I think it's a good thing, you know. But early on, we were both recently saved, going back to church together, and
Nice.
it kind of hit me after like one of our spats, because we would have arguments, and I think everybody goes through that phase where they're just learning how to live together, and some people stay in that phase longer than others. But it was in that phase that I realized, oh my goodness, like everything else out here in the world is changing. Like the definition of marriage changes, what is right, what is wrong, constantly shifting from the world's perspective.
Right.
But what's right here in the word doesn't change. And it was a realization there, like, I don't know, something clicked in me where I realized, you know God designed this, he knows what he's talking about, and so I should probably figure out what he thinks a good marriage is and help lead my family in that. And so it wasn't, I think the light bulb just hit for me, and it, after, I can't remember which spat it was, but I had a moment where I was like, dang it, I need some help. And I didn't have a community of married men around me to, reach out to. There were a couple men at my church, but sometimes like the vibe or the energy just
Mhm.
wasn't right for that type of, but thank God you don't need a middleman. You can just go right here, and you can be real self-sufficient with God. So
That is true. That
yeah,
is true. So
yeah,
at what
absolutely.
point did you and your wife were like, okay, we've got to come back to God and see what he has to say about everything? Was there a pivotal moment, or it was just like, okay, there's just no other option?
Yeah, I think it's, if you find yourself having like the same argument over and over again, or if you find yourself dealing with like the same trouble over and over again, and what you've done, quote unquote, doesn't work, then you end up having to go to God. And I think that's what he wants. He
Mhm.
almost like breaks us down. So we have to go seek him a lot of
Yeah.
times. And that is more or less what happened to us. Um, we're both very strong personalities. And
Okay.
so it was it was recognizing that us doing this apart from apart from God, apart from a framework, apart from knowing what to hold each other accountable to, apart from knowing how to show love to each other based on each other's role in the marriage, absolutely critical. Because if you don't have that, you're just going off of what you feel, and that isn't reliable. I think a lot of people feel like their emotions are reliable. It's like, yo, just because you don't feel good about it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever's making you feel that way is wrong.
Right.
You know? And vice versa. So yeah, I guess that's how I'd answer that question. Yeah.
Cool. So what's your foundation for having like a successful marriage so far? Like, are there any key things that you feel like should always kind of like be in place?
Yeah, sure. So, and listener probably pick up on this by now, but I'm from the Judeo-Christian context. You know, I love Jesus. This family loves Jesus. And
Amen.
so I can only answer from that context. Like, I don't know how any other context operates in a marriage. I don't know how y'all do it. This is what works for me. And yeah, so I think the main verse, I think it was the Apostle Paul's, you know, husbands, love your wives, and wives, submit to your husbands. Husbands, it's our job to love our wives as much as Christ loved the church. That's that could be its own podcast episode. Yes, right there.
That's a whole word.
Right. But then what that does is it allows the wife in the relationship to submit, because submission requires trust. And I think, like, especially a lot of women these days, I understand and I feel for them, because you know, there seems to be a shortage of good men out there. I'm not in the dating pool, so I don't know, but you know, I'm just going to assume based on what I see on social media.
I know. That's what they say, but I don't know.
Right. But a lot of men would, you know, say the opposite about, you know, a lot of women. And it's one of those things where it's like, she's only going to submit if she knows, or if she can sense spiritually that you have right intentions and that you have right knowledge about what this thing is supposed to be in the first place. Right. Like, if God designed us, then if a man is functioning in his relationship with Christ individually and then collectively as a family, I feel like most women in that type of marriage, you know, we're not perfect all the time, but that resonates naturally based on how women are designed. Right. And but that's the model that we have in the Bible, right? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Jesus didn't do anything without the Father, without the Father's know-how, without the Father's approval, but he knew that the Father was a trustworthy source of leadership. Right. And you know, that is key, because once again, if you don't have that, if you don't have a framework, if you don't have a foundation in Christ, I'll say, then you are going off of what you feel. And, you know, BET can change how you feel. You know what I'm saying? The internet can change how you feel. Your friend at work can change how you feel. Andrew Tate can change how you feel. And so that's why the word says, you know, let God be true and every man a liar, you know, especially when it comes to something as deep and I'd say as foundational as marriage. Marriage is the first institution we have, the first type of relationship we see that exists in the universe, aside from man and God, is then man, woman, and God is the very first thing. It's very important. Yeah, that's how I'd answer that.
No, yep. I love that. I'm like, yes, give it to him. Because it's like, I hear, you know, and I'm sure you see it all across social media, how there's like this great divide between men and women.
Absolutely.
It's like this my war on marriage, and people are just kind of like, the minute it gets tough, they're just like looking for the exit door. And it's just like, we gotta kind of figure out, you know, what's the root of the thing, because whatever you're arguing about now, or whatever the issue is, I'm pretty sure it kind of shows up in other places. So it's kind of like, you just gotta, you know, do a little evaluation and give each other grace, because life is hard. Okay. And especially in 2023. Okay.
Oh, the grace is huge. And I think, you know, once again, that's why we need Christ as the example and at the foundation of of the relationship, because he is our model for what love is like. You know, his bride is the church.
Mhm.
And I wonder how many sins God has to endure witnessing just on a hourly basis, you
Yeah.
know. But he still died for us, you
Yeah.
know, which is huge. And that is our example for what love truly is, like unconditional love. Like, now I'm not talking about this person's abusing you and whatnot, that's different.
Right.
But you know, irreconcilable differences, like, give me a break, you know what I'm
I
saying?
know. I'm like, what does that even
What does that
mean?
even mean, right?
Did you
Like,
try to reconcile the difference? How about that? And how
right.
hard did you try?
Right. And so it's like, I don't know what the statistics are in terms of, like, you know, how many marriages result in divorce because of some sort of, and people claim like emotional abuse, which is a thing, but I'm talking like physical, hard on actual abuse, violent abuse. I feel like that has to be the exception and not the norm, but I don't know. So don't quote me on that. But
Right.
yeah, no, we need a model for forgiveness. We need a model for grace. We need
Mm,
a model for how do we come back together and rally around this foundation of Christ so that we can both grow as a family. Are we still family at the end of the day? Do we
yeah.
still love each other at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
huge.
I love that. So you mentioned a couple of things. You had mentioned that you and your wife had gone to like counseling. What were some of the tools that you took out of that counseling experience that you feel like have like really helped you and your wife now?
Oh man, so we would, and I love this pastor so much, and he could come over and have dinner with me, and we would be all copacetic. But that it just wasn't good. One resource that I was going to recommend at the end of this, though, and you said, like, what's the takeaway? I didn't like chat GPT or something or anything. It's like I could totally just like write something, you know. But I was like, no, let me give people something that will actually help them, that helped us. I don't know if you know Tony Evans.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, Tony Evans is like one of those, like, when he's called to preach, clearly this
Yeah.
guy right here.
Yeah. I
And
agree. Because he sucks
any
me in all the time. I'm like,
Oh my gosh, like, seriously. So any resource that he has about marriage is going to be good, but if you are willing to pony up, you know, $12 just for a month of access to the Tony Evans Training Center, tonyevanstraining.org, he has a kingdom marriage course, and it talks all about how to be a kingdom God-fearing single, how to be a kingdom God-fearing husband and wife, what it means to raise kingdom kids. It's the whole thing. And that, if I would have had that on the front end, whoo, you're talking about, like, because Destiny and I, like, that's my wife, we had to go and, you know, when we were going through, you know, we were like, well, maybe we take a course together. And that was one that we took together that actually really helped us out, because it not only clarifies what our individual roles are, it also helps us know what the other person's role is, so
Yeah.
that once again we can support each other in that way based on
Right.
what this thing really is. So that's what I would recommend, because, you know, as much as I love my first pastor with the very, very first counseling, it just, you know, it it a mile wide and an inch deep is really all I can say
Yeah.
without getting too deep into it.
Yeah. I mean, and then sometimes, I mean, they say even like with counseling, everything is not even going to be fixed in like that one session. Sometimes it's going to take multiple times, or just trying something at a different angle just to
Mhm.
like kind of get on the same page. So it's all
Exactly.
good. I mean, you
Exactly.
guys are trying. So, I mean, that's half the battle. You're doing
Mhm.
more than what most would do. Most people, it gets hard and they just like jump ship and don't even think twice about it. So,
Yeah, but and
but
that's
it'll
I
still
say
good.
is, I mean, you know, it would you want Jesus to jump ship on you? You know, if you made him upset or did something wrong, no, you're gonna be like, please forgive me. You
Yeah.
know, so
Absolutely.
they that have ears, you know.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Yes, you were such a great guest. You have so much insight. You're like, from the time that we met, I'm like, yes, like you were spot on. Because like in my own time, like I had mentioned when we first spoke, I'm taking discipleship classes at my
Yeah,
church, and
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
things that, well, a different explanation of like a wife and her role, or the way men find their wives, is that their wife is the female expression of them. And I was just like,
Mm,
oh wow, I had never heard it explained that way. But
yeah.
then I was like, in real time, I see how that makes sense. Cause outside of like a lot of times people say, oh, do you know that you're starting to look like your husband? I'm like,
Yeah.
no, but I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just, your partner ultimately kind of emulates you or is a version of yourself. So speaking on that, do you feel like your wife truly embodies your essence in a female version?
Wow. Honestly, I would say in a way, yeah. I think that that gets back to Genesis, right? Well, he needs a helper suitable for him. So
Yes.
that word suitable, right?
Yeah.
And so if God puts you together, then there should be something there for each of you, to be suitable for that other person.
Yeah.
So I've never heard it worded that way, but that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
the teacher, she was like, no, men know who their wives are. Like, they know. If they're like telling you that they don't know, then like that's not complete truth, because they're looking for the female expression of themselves. And like
Yeah.
when she shows up, they just like they know.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I
And I
guess
was like, oh,
in that regard, like when I met my wife, I knew that she was the one for me when she was the first person that I can say, and I'm gonna say, family and friends included, like she was the first person that I met that I didn't feel like I had to dress a certain way, listen to a certain kind of music, have a certain career aspiration, in order for her to just accept me and just enjoy being with me.
yeah,
And this is another thing, but our love was tested. I had a job, I had a house like when she met me, and literally like it was like 7 or 10 days after she met me, I got kicked out of my house, kicked out of my apartment, and I was homeless for like that next like 2.5 months until I finally had a moment where I was like, if I ever want a future with this woman, I need to get my life together. And so, but there was then that initial period where I was like, man, like she's still with me by my side. She was living with her parents though, so I couldn't like go live with her or anything like that.
right,
But it was one of those moments where I was like, man, like clearly she loves me because I know I'm gonna get my act together, you
yeah.
know. But she's loving me like even in the midst of all this, like, wow, like lock you down and you're hot. So that's just perfect.
Yes. No, I love that you mentioned that, because now when I hear like singles and all over social media, I'm like so thankful I'm no longer dating. I'm like, because the requirements that are out there just to date, I'm like, this is insane. Like I saw somewhere that a woman was offended that on the first date the gentleman asked her out for ice cream. I was like, what's
Oh,
wrong with ice cream? It's like 90 degrees outside. So what are your thoughts on
no,
dating
I don't know
and the
why.
criteria?
I don't know why you ice cream's great. I don't know why. What's there to not like about? Does she not like ice cream? Was she lactose intolerant? Like, I don't
I don't
know.
know. But it was something along the lines where she told him like he needed to like level up, and that's not what you do
Okay, all
like
right.
on a first date. I'm like, it's your first
It's
date.
your first date. So let's talk about this, right? So, and I tell the same thing to my clients when we're talking about just identity, because like how you see a thing and how you see yourself in a thing will really determine what your expectations are of a thing or a scenario. So deeper than that, okay, if one of the requirements, here's why anything financial for me is not a good requirement. And this is going to be pretty deep, but this is just how I see the world. So I'm going to go there. America hasn't been on the gold standard for quite some time now. There used to be a time where you could go into the bank, trade in your dollars, and get your weight in gold based on those dollars. That's where that turn of phrase comes from. You're worth your weight in gold. That's where that comes from.
Yeah.
It came to pass that the United States government seized all the gold, took us off the gold standard, and now we're on what's known as this fractional reserve system, where everything is basically credit based, everything is debt based. So when you base anything about your identity on dollar figures, you are literally basing your identity on nothing, because the only thing that gives the dollar any sort of worth is that we believe that it's worth that. There's no gold. There's nothing in the bank. And so when somebody says you have to like level up financially, it's like, now I get that, you shouldn't get predatory loans, you should have a good debt to income ratio, you should be a good steward of your finances, like all that stuff is I get that. But when you're willing to like stake your identity's flag in money, there's literally nothing there, like literally. So, but once again, I believe that the generation is fatherless, and it shows. And so I'm not surprised that there's a lot of people, like me, who grew up in single parent homes that had no idea what this relationship thing is really about. And now you wonder why you lack fulfillment and you can't find anybody. It's because your whole value system needs a rewrite. But most people lack humility to admit that. And I think, really that is the key to marriage right there, is just humility. Are we willing to admit that we're wrong when we are? Are we willing to admit that we don't know? Are we willing to not be mad at the person for saying that they don't know? You feel me? Like there's no humility out here anymore. There's no, and so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Many are called, few are chosen. It stands to reason that a lot of people are going to get married. Very few people are going to stay married. And even fewer than those people are going to be happy and fulfilled in their marriage. It just is what it is. We all have the same opportunity, but we're not all going to go that hard and be that intentional and be that humble in it. Just is what it is.
No, I agree, because I look at stuff and I'm just like, oh wow, this is like insane. I'm like, before you're asking all these different requirements, do you know who you are as a person? Like what your purpose is? And it's always about like, oh, what is the other person gonna do for me? No, what are you doing?
What are you
going
to
do
for them?
And what are you gonna do for them?
Right. Like we are always like, well, what is this person going to bring to the table? And like, I get that from, like the woman speaking to the man because the man is the leader, but let's just go there one step further. People are, and this is so weird to me, people are sitting here like, I don't know how many contexts where the man is the leader in terms of like a religious context. Feel me? Like, I don't understand how people can be like spiritual but not religious, but then expect like folks to attach to these very traditional like gender roles in their marriage. So it's like, what do you mean level up, but you're over here doing chakra meditations? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you have no idea, like you walking contradiction, and that's not a knock, but I guess it kind of is. It's like, let's look in a mirror and let's humble ourselves and realize that, if you're going to go full Jesus and you want like a traditional marriage, then you got to go full Jesus. Like, you can't just be like, well, I want the man to level up. Like, where does that come from? That comes from God saying that the man needs to have his job and get his life together. Now I'm going to make Eve. So it's like Adam had a job. He was naming the animals. Everything was good, but he wasn't fulfilled. He had his career. He was popping with the animals. Everything was good. Everything was perfect. My guy had God over here and he still lacked fulfillment. And so, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, so now Eve comes into the picture and Adam's like, oh my goodness, like here I found, a helper suitable for me, but once again, that's from the Judeo-Christian context. So don't come in here trying to get this man to adhere to a context that you don't even identify with. Like, where's your foundation? Great question. I don't know. Where is it? I don't know.
I know. And then they wonder why we're not equally yoked. And it's like, did you think about that beforehand?
Exactly.
Just pondering.
It's deep, but I think like, for me, I at least had the desire, to want to be married, and so, if you desire to be married, then your actions need to line up with that desire to be married. Like, don't go doing things and being things and wearing things and doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, because that's not what married people do. Like, if you're married, then start acting married now. You know, if you single, but you want to be married, start acting like that now. You know, if that's really what you desire, because by doing that alone, you are going to set yourself apart from all these other women, all these other men out here. You will naturally not even be in certain places around the people that you shouldn't even be meeting just by doing that alone.
Yeah. No, I love it. So what was the best advice someone gave you about marriage before you got married?
Oh, before I got married. Weather the storm.
Yeah, I feel like most people that have been married for a long time, they say that, and forgive often.
And forget, oh yeah, absolutely. You know, and people like, oh, but forgive what? Like my husband or my wife is perfect. Oh, you'll see. You'll see. No, yeah. I think, you know, really, you know, hindsight is 2020. The best advice that I could give, just purely, is just consult the word on what it says a marriage is. Realize where your blind spots are from a spiritual perspective, so that you can start to cultivate those blind spots. And when you meet a person, you can actually start to have more intentional discussions on the front end. My wife and I, we weren't super locked in spiritually with Jesus when we got married, but we had half enough grace from God to know that we needed to get it right with God, you know? But our working together, like doing the Tony Evans courses and stuff, that was gradual over time. But the one thing that we always had was a desire to be married to each other. We always had that. And, you know, and I think that's a trick too, is like, you know, you can't force somebody to desire marriage. You know, I feel like maybe a lot of guys feel like they have to get married. And a lot of women, you know, and this is where the whole, like, you know, who wants the milk if you got the whole cow kind of thing. I don't know. But, you know, I feel like a piece of that is true, you know. Just get really secure and locked in on what this thing really is, and then be even more humble, you know. Don't lord your relationship and knowledge of God over your husband. You will lose, trust me. And then same thing with husbands, like, don't lord your relationship with Christ or your knowledge above your wife. You will lose, trust me. You know, the more knowledge we get, the more humble we get, because we realize that we've been forgiven more that we learn.
Right.
And so, yeah, you need Jesus. We all need Jesus.
We all do, seriously.
That's
I
the
see
advice.
It every day and I'm like, we need Jesus.
The only advice is Jesus Christ. That's gonna be my slogan. The only advice is Jesus Christ.
But that's a good one, and that's a real one. That it's like,
that's a spirit. I just came up with that. That's a spirit. I just came up with it. I'm gonna write it down. Yeah.
Listen, write it down, find a way to monetize it, and the Lord will, you know.
You heard it here today. If you see it on a t-shirt.
The idea originated here first on Just Be You podcast. We're doing things, people.
That's right.
So how was it that you and your wife like to have fun? What are some of the things that you guys most enjoy together?
Okay, yeah. So we just love going on adventures. My wife will tell you, like, her parents, they you know, and I love them, they're kind of homebodies sometimes. And so she, like, will always try to get them to go and do stuff. And so she's the same way now. Like, she likes to just, like, go to the amusement park, just get out of the house, you know, just like go play outside, spend time with the kids, like, just to get out, you know. It's difficult now, we're in the heat wave over here, but you know. But yeah, like, you know, just like watching Netflix, you know, that quality time is important. This is a if women wanted, like, just a really kind of just like nugget life hack, like the easiest thing that you can do to just get like 50 points from your man, like, and you don't have to do this all the time, but I'm just gonna let y'all know, just express interest in the hobby that he really likes to do on his downtime. Like,
that's a fact.
Play the video game with him. It's a stupid game. I know. I play the stupid game. I was playing stupid games before I hop on this podcast. It's called Overwatch. I was playing it just now. But it doesn't have to happen all the time, but man, you will get so many points from your man. And I'd say vice versa, express interest in what the other person is interested in, love that person that way. It'll go very far.
Yes. And I will second that ultimately, because my husband, sometimes he just wants me to sit there and watch him play the game. Like, I don't even necessarily have to play, but I'm like, wow, babe. And he'll be like, you seen that? I was like, I did. You did that, babe. You did that. Okay.
I do the same thing. I'll be like, yo, you see, I just hit my ultimate. She'd be like, oh yeah, good job. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I don't always know what the meaning behind it, but he was hyped. I'm just gonna be hyped with him, or even hype him up some more. I'm like, yeah, now go back and do da 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 and da 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 da. So yes,
I know he's very happy. Yeah, I already know. I'm giving him dap right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Elroy, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. You were fantastic. I really appreciated the conversation, and it is also nice to just get another sneak peek into the male brain outside of my husband, because I'm always asking him all these hypothetical questions about whatever it is, and I'm like, oh, do guys really feel this way, and da 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 da. Because I always feel like that's the best source of info, my spouse. So I thank you again for coming on. Do you have any last words that you want to share for the singles out there, or people that are already married and just going through the ebbs and flows of married life? Because it ain't easy, and it's not for the weak.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so married people, just keep doing what you're doing, assuming that you are forgiving each other and being very patient with each other. Find a way to explore and deepen your love of Christ together. If you are not having family meals together regularly, you have to do that. I'm just gonna put that out there. And then for singles, just focus on you, in that, be responsible with your finances, be responsible with your body, just be as responsible as you can, cultivate a knowledge of what this marriage thing really is, and then act on that knowledge. And when God is ready for you to meet that person, you will meet that person. What is for you can't be taken from you. There is one person out there for you. You don't need to appeal to every single person. You just need to be ready for when God wants to match you up with that person. So, and get off social media. Seriously. No, seriously. If you listen to anything that these folks are saying, you will lose. Trust me, you will. So, if you want to win, just focus on Christ and just be very humble in your focus, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I love it. And where can people find you? Best way to connect with you if they want to, learn more about what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. It's going, so website is still being constructed, but just, add or follow me on Facebook, Elroy Waters. The guy with the afro looks all happy with the microphone. Add me. I would love to talk, DM, whatever. I would love to pray with you, help you through whatever you're working on. But yeah, hopefully this perspective helps. Women, just find a man who actually wants to be married. Just start there, because you can't manufacture a desire for marriage in a man. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And then men, just that woman is there. Just find somebody with a good heart that is willing to be patient with you, that loves the Lord, that you are attracted to.
Yeah.
and you will be okay. You'll be fine.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show. It was great. And guys, we'll be back next week for an all new episode of Just Be You. And just know you're not alone. We're all here trying to navigate this thing called life. So, as Elroy said it, just take some time, invest in yourself, and just, find the Lord, because he's waiting for you. That's one thing I know for sure. He is waiting. And just remember, if no one's told you today, you are strong, you are worthy, and you are enough. Bye for now.